All right, so they grabbed the news headlines and raised our interests. On March 8th, the Gleaner read, why the Moravian pastor only got 8 years in prison for carnal abuse. On March 6th, McLean murder trial, guilty on all counts, businessman to be sentenced April 12 for killing 6 people. We've invited the Director of Public Prosecutions, Paula Llewellyn, and Assistant GPP, a young Adley Duncan, to discuss these 2 cases with us this morning. Good morning to you, DPP. Adley, come join us on set so we can... I'm very impressed with this young gentleman. I haven't spoken to him yet, but I mean to take on such a job. Come, sir. Come.
He is one of Cornwall College's stars.
Okay.
He was a school challenger.
Adley.
Hi, good morning.
Debater.
Yes.
And he's a very good advocate.
Good to see you both. DPP, you're here. You've been here before. We often talk about some of the challenges with prosecuting cases, and we talk about justice and its, issues in Jamaica. This one is a win for a family who's been, let's talk about the McLean case first, who's been in pain for many, many years.
Yes.
I think, or should I ask you, is this kind of the best and the worst of the justice system, this case?
Well, perhaps you could tell me why you think it's the
Because it took
worst.
so long. It was how many mentions you said? 87?
80 odd, about 87 mention dates, 15 trial dates. Perhaps some cynics would say it's the best and the worst, but what persons may not understand is that part of due process for any accused person is a fair trial. When you go to the Court of Appeal or the Privy Council, the conviction can be easily quashed because the trial was not fair or there was a miscarriage of justice.
Right.
In this case, it was quite clear. When I happened to have been in court last year, October or November, when I looked at the record, that the accused person, Mr. McLean, had been manipulating the system because there is no judge who is going, or even a prosecutor, who is going to go into the trial of a case with 6 counts of murder without the accused man having his attorney. And he fired about 9 attorneys.
No less than 8.
No less than 8
And tried to fire the one that was...
He did fire him.
And the judge said no way.
But the judge indicates, because the judge is the final arbiter of its processes, and he is the guardian of fairness, as well as the prosecutor. So he did not allow him to withdraw. So even though an accused person can fire his attorney, the judge balances the competing factors of the length of time that the matter has taken to be tried, the interest of justice, the interest of the community, the interest of the victims, and the interest of the accused. So he has to protect the accused too from himself.
Why do you use the word fair in this case?
Because the allegations were very, very serious. I personally, in 31 years as a prosecutor, I have never prosecuted a case where the allegations deal with 6 counts of murder. So therefore, they are very, very serious. You had legal technicalities in the case that needed an attorney's, submissions.
Okay.
And Mr. McLean is not a trained attorney.
Okay.
So although he was allowed to cross-examine some of the witnesses, the fact of the matter is that in terms of certain legal submissions, for example, the issue of a no-case submission and the response, the issue of the fact that we had to prove copy documents because the original file had never come to our office. We only had typed copies, but we were able to use authority and make submissions. The issue of the voluntariness of the caution statement, those are
so the concern was that had he not been represented properly, for want of a better word, someone might say, well, never fear, man. Okay.
Well, definitely. And the system that some people like to rail against would never allow that. So even though he manipulated the system, we still have to bend over backwards to give him the
Before we
fairness.
head to Adley, for the folks who are watching who don't know the details of this case, we won't get too much into them because really and truly, when I heard them, I could not believe that somebody could.
Which one?
The McLean case.
Yes.
So this gentleman believed he was being...
Obeyed.
By his
girlfriend. His
girlfriend at the time.
Well, he had many girlfriends, but this one assisted him with running the restaurant and bar.
And so
he thought that he was being obeyed, and as a result of that, he was numb from his waist down, and he seems to have been very preoccupied with his phallus, let me call it that, and his ability to service a lot of women. And he thought that she was obeying him.
So
and in fact, she apparently, according to the evidence, had taken him to her obeah, and he was not supposed to bathe for 9 days. So the 9th day was up on the Saturday of the murders. And on the Saturday, but the Friday, he went to another obeah with, according to the lady who gave evidence.
The senior
and he was told that when he holds his hands, he sees knives and a lot of blood. So, on the Saturday, he went back to his home. According to his employee, took up a chopper, a knife, a shovel, and he also had a machete.
And he killed her. He killed her niece.
Yes, and their 4 children.
Yeah.
But there are 2 remaining children.
The senior writer says mainly circumstantial
evidence. It was circumstantial evidence in that we did not have any direct IC evidence. So we elicited evidence from which the circumstances we are asking the jury to infer that when you look at the totality of the evidence, you would be satisfied so that you feel sure
would that be difficult?
He did murder each.
Was that difficult for you to get the jury?
Well, I must confess, I love circumstances. This is why Adley's laughing. Yeah. I have made my career on doing a lot of jury trials, and it's known in the office that I love circumstances.
And you had some good witnesses too.
I had good witnesses and courageous witnesses.
Yes.
And let me tell you something. People love to talk about more technology, etc., etc. Listen, the great majority of the cases depend on what we call viva voce evidence from witnesses coming to give the evidence in court. So if you don't have the witnesses,
you're
in trouble. That is what proves the case.
You're in trouble.
That is what proves the case.
Yes.
And that is why, irrespective of whether you have Commissioner of Police, DPP, Minister of National Security, you must have people who are prepared to come and say what they saw and what they know.
Before Mr. Duncan, ma'am, this, I say thing, if you plead guilty, you get 50%. Why?
Up to.
Okay.
Up to.
That's what I was going to ask. And it says the story says 50%, so it's not necessarily.
Well, I will.
Yes,
Oh, hi. Well, all right. So the legislators
how long are you doing this, by the way?
How long have I been prosecuting?
Yes.
This year will be 9 years. I'm in my 9th year.
Yeah.
I don't believe you.
I'm in my 31st.
So we're not talking about the Moravian pastor, which and it says only got 8 years.
Right.
So explain that you were explaining the legislation.
So you asked me about the basis of the provision that you can get up to 50% discount when you plead. That's only a very small part of the picture. So this is what I'd call a legislative response in 2015, November, because our justice system, it has not been able over the years, especially recently, to accommodate the number of cases that populate it, right? So we have sometimes proactive politicians, and they said, how can we address this problem? You know, there's still a lot of work to do. But one of the things that Parliament looked at was that we need persons. We need to incentivize guilty pleas. Because if people don't plead guilty, we will never be able to get through all the cases, right? So it's in November 2015, there was an amendment to the parent legislation. And there are 3 tiers. So it's not just, you know, you plead to get 50. That's a gross oversimplification. There are 3 tiers under the new legislation. So on the first tier, you have something called the first relevant date. Basically, you plead early, you get the maximum reduction. The earlier you plead, the better it is for you, which is up to 50%. So a judge has a discretion still. You can plead early, and the judge still looks at the case and says, boy, boss, you know, this case, I'm not giving you the full 50. I'll give you 40 or 10 or 0. In the second tier, you don't quite plead at the earliest relevant date, but you still plead before trial. And the reduction available to you is up to 35%. And if you plead after the trial starts, but before the verdict comes back, then the reduction is up to 50%.
The pastor pleaded in the middle of that, or did he plead early?
The law defines first relevant date, which isn't necessarily the first possible court date. The first relevant date means the first time that the file is complete, or the first time that the defense has been served, has been given full disclosure. So at the time the pastor pleaded guilty was when the very last document came in.
He had said not guilty first.
he wasn't called upon to plead. So when it's mentioned, when you're coming before court to representation to be sorted out, you know, medical to come on the file, statements to come in, you're not called upon to plead until the day of trial. And these were not trial dates; these were all what we call mention dates. So he was not called upon to plead. But on the very last mention date in the St. Elizabeth Circuit Court, he elected to plead guilty. Good. So indictments, of course, are on the file. We present the indictment, and when the indictment is presented, he elects to plead guilty.
So then this would not have been such a tough one to prosecute? Or no? I don't know.
Well, actually, we had applied for a change of venue because we recognized that with all the prevailing brouhaha in the public domain, that given the sensitive situation surrounding the complainants, and also the fact that the accused was an extremely popular pastor in that part of the world. We thought that for security reasons and for the sensitivity of both sides, that the interests of justice would have been better served if the matter was carried to Kingston. And I did so instruct Adi to make the application. And it was a very long, involved, complex application.
As is everything in law.
Yes, which he responded to. And in fact, the Crown, the judge made the order that he agreed with us. It should go to Kingston. And it is right after that that the accused asked.
Adley, could you explain an adult in authority was a person of trust? Apparently he was not viewed as that.
Well, so again, all right, so the statute defines Section 10.
Sexual offense.
The Sexual Offences Act of 2009, right, defines, you know, in law what an adult in authority is. Now, in this particular, and so it's there for everybody to read, and it's basically, and I'm oversimplifying just for ease of explanation, a person who is in a particular or peculiar or unique position of trust in relation to the person who is the victim of the offense, the complainant.
So if he's not the pastor of that young lady, it doesn't apply?
Not quite. So as a matter of law, it doesn't apply. So there are two things I'll say in response to your Neville. So the first thing I'll say is that because he was not their pastor, and the allegations are facts, he met this family, by the way, they were walking on the road, he stopped and he became a friend of the family, so to speak. They were never congregants in his church. He never occupied a position of trust in that kind of way in relation to them. However, when the judge was articulating his reasons for delivering his sentence, and he was very scrupulous, in my opinion, in outlining exactly how he came to the sentence he eventually came to. When he was outlining the reasons, he said that, you know, this person put himself in a position of trust in relation to the family. So although as a matter of law, it may not have met the statutory requirements, as a matter of fact, based on the circumstances, it's something he took into consideration.
Are you comfortable with the time that the pastor got?
Am I comfortable with the time the pastor got? What I will say is this. The sentencing process was done scrupulously and transparently, fairly, and I do understand that members of the public who may not have all the information, they're outraged by it because it's something that will evoke disgust, and disgust is a powerful emotion. The judge, of course, is not permitted to be emotional. We're all human beings, and neither are we. We're all human beings, but the judge, members of the public, would not put their emotions aside. Their jobs don't require that. A judge's job does require that. And my job also requires that.
Yes. How difficult is that? I mean, I know we have to go soon, but to be dispassionate, I want to ask you, DPP, do you have issues sleeping at night?
I'll be frank with you. I mean, this particular case, and I've done other cases like this, because of the allegations and the evidence that you heard, I must confess, as I prepared myself mentally to address the jury, I didn't really sleep more than 2 hours. And it happens to most of us because the allegation and the evidence, it's going around in your mind. And we had other issues in the matter. We had security sensitivities as well and other issues. So sometimes it can be difficult. But your training and your experience and your knowledge of the law, it's a discipline. So unlike perhaps some journalists and many members of the society, you have the luxury of emoting about so many things. We don't have that luxury.
How do you
so we will emote because of your training and your experience. You know, sometimes when I hear people talking about, oh, this agency wants to prosecute that agency, we in the office, we laugh because we know, and it has been judicially recognized from the Privy Council, that an experienced prosecutor, they don't grow on trees. So if you don't know what you're doing, and if you're going to be somebody who is going to forget the law and just go with emotion, you are going to be very embarrassed.
Final question for me, and I'm not giving Adley a hard time, even though I don't think he answered me.
Didn't have a chance. I wanted to get to you, though.
In South Africa, Pistorius was given X amount of years, and the lawyer didn't agree with that, and he appealed.
The prosecutor didn't agree.
And he appealed. Do we have that luxury here in Jamaica?
We don't have a right of appeal for the prosecution. We have it all over the Caribbean. We have it all over the world. But in Jamaica, in the Commonwealth, we still are lagging behind.
So if he was given 1 day, you just have to live with
we could not do anything because we don't have a right of appeal.
But
the Minister of Justice has indicated there's a draft bill, and I believe in the throne speech by the Governor General that they are going to look at it legislatively.
Thanks a lot for coming.
Yes, you're so welcome.
So impressive.
Thank you.
DPP.
Good luck to you, Sir Adley. Thank you.
Assistant DPP, Adley Duncan.
All right, up next, living your passion. I'm sure these folks can tell you a little bit about that. We'll be right back.